Unfortunately, I think we're going to be in a bit of a slow period here. Clearly, there are teams out there that are not happy with the way this offseason's gone to date and would like to rectify that before training camp begins. I would assume one of those teams is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And because I'm not sure how you could be happy with your offseason, given the fact you just lost the best point getter of the generation to the Vegas Golden Knights for very little I mean, a very respectable player in Nicholas Waugh, don't get me wrong, but not exactly a commensurate return.
So we won't spend a lot of time on the Leafs, but just to look at that, I mean, you've got this collection of forwards. Obviously, the two holes are top of the right side on the top line, left side on the second line. And to me, I sort of look at that as they did last year on the left side of the second line, an ongoing audition throughout the year until the right guy shows up. And maybe that's at the trade deadline. Maybe it's before. But I think this puts you might disagree with me. I think it puts more pressure on the bottom six because these guys have to deliver on a nightly basis because of that big hole in the top line.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, look, I think if you're Nicholas Waugh, you feel a little bit of pressure. You were the guy they fetched in the Mitch Marner trade, and he's come highly touted, right? Like a lot of people have really blown his horn and said this guy can play, and this guy is going to be a contributor. So he's your third line center. Assuming Scotty Lawton's the fourth line center, I'm sure you can probably flip those two lines any given game for the one or two shifts here that they might diverge on, and probably be pretty happy. But so you're right. There is pressure on that bottom six because they've got to give some production, ideally. If you want to be the playoff team you hope you can be, you need some production from down the lineup, and they didn't get a lot of it in these playoffs. And that was a problem.
I just think that early in the season we'll be looking at that bottom six and looking for hints of how they would play in a playoff series just because they're going to have to pick up some slack. And regardless of whether Marner was here or not, I think that would still be the agenda.
Yeah.
The bottom six had to be repaired.
Well, Brad Treliving's made no bones about the idea that he wants this team to be about more than the core four. Well, now it's not about the core four because the core four doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
But I think what he was trying to get at, what he's been trying to get at with that line of public sort of discussion is, this has got to be it's not about four guys or now three guys. It's about four lines, ideally, and three pairs of D and a platoon of goaltenders and, a coaching staff with multiple contributors, on various fronts. So they're trying to build that team ethos in a franchise that has sort of been built around the star system, the star hierarchy, where these four stars got everything they wanted, gobbled up 50% of the cap. Difficult to make everybody else feel like they're a big part of things when such a big part of things is devoted to so few. But obviously there's an evening out going on here with Mitch Marner's money off the books and a little bit more of an egalitarian system here. And maybe that transfers into more of a feeling that everyone's involved. Everybody means something. Every piece matters.
Yeah, it's on everybody.
Yeah. And that could be good, right? Like, I'm not saying that it's great that Mitch Marner is no longer in the building because, he's guy, if he would have hung around, it's one of the great if-onlys in Maple Leaf history. If he would have hung around, he'd be passing Boreas Salming for fourth all-time on the franchise points list this season, and he'd be, stalking those top three guys for the next couple of years and probably destined to be at the top of it by the end of it in a bit of a race with Austin Matthews for who can end up at the top first or end up at the top in the end. But there it is right there. How about that board? I mean, you're passing Salming and you're on the heels of Dave Keon, Daryl Sittler, Matt Sundin. It wouldn't have taken too many years, right? Like he's 246 points behind Matt Sundin. So, for Mitch Marner, that's a 2.5 years work, right?
2 and a bit, yeah.
So he could have been the all-time leading point getter in the history of the franchise in the town he grew up in. I mean, it would have been an amazing story, right?
Well, and if he added to his playoff total, that would have been even more impressive. But, it's not going to happen.
And also more important and more impactful. But it's not going to happen. But I do think, like, if you want to spin the positive of what's the bright side of Mitch Marner leaving town, you would like to think in an ideal world there's a new dynamic. And
that's what they talked about.
Whatever was holding this team back in the past, in the big moments, in the critical moments, as Brad Treliving has talked about, maybe it's just a different mix of guys changes the result.
Well, if everybody's responsible, that's got to be a big plus in Game 5 or Game 7 because clearly everybody was waiting for somebody to grab the throttle.
Yeah, 6-1, 6-1, and nobody really grabbed it. And, look, you can all be waiting around for somebody to show up, and if nobody can play in the bottom six, it's not going to matter, right? So they've got to be able to play.
That bottom six the Panthers have is pretty daunting.
It is. Especially when your third line is on a lot of nights your best line. That's a scary proposition because you cannot say that about the Maple Leafs, or you haven't been able to say that about the Maple Leafs. But look, man, there'll be plenty of time to talk about it. But I do think, when you think about the Maple Leafs, and you're right, like right now with Michelli on the right side, penciled in alongside Matthews and Nyes on the first line, that doesn't feel like a permanent.
No, I think that's an open audition.
Bobby McMahon on the left side.
That's an open audition, too.
Of Tavares and Nylander. Feels like an open audition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though Bobby McMahon's had plenty of chances, he's always had that touch and go feeling there where Craig Berube has never been quite convinced that he's the guy.
It's not 82 games deep.
Yeah, exactly.
It has great moments, and then it subsides.
But, on the upside, internal competition is a good thing. They had it last year, and it did serve them well to a point, I think. I felt that, like they had a pretty good regular season. And obviously, we're storming along pretty good there, up 3-1 in Game 3 of the second round. And then, things happen. But there's a recipe there for this to go better. They got to figure out what the ingredients are.